Next up, at UFC 306, we have the featured fight of the evening. We have the rebooked Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. This was supposed to happen at UFC 303. Jakey Boy and I were there in person, yucking it up in the VIP, hanging out with the people, doing the things. And then we all found out together on the TV. And I put my arm around Brandon Moreno. You knew. You told us, and then the TV show.
I found on Twitter. I was letting everyone know, and they were like, no. And I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah. And then I put my arm around Brandon Moreno, and I told him, I said, did you know that Diego Lopez is now fighting Dan Ige? Because Brian Ortega's fat ass.
You put your arm around him, and then you were like touching him, and then touching him, and then touching him, and then touching him. And
I wasn't as touchy as people were indicating. People
you were way more touchy.
Nah, it wasn't that touchy. I'm not that touchy. I'm also...
You're very touchy.
I'm not that touchy. It was more like, dude, can you believe it? Like tapping, like, dude.
No, every time you ask anybody a question, you have to touch them.
Tap. I tap.
No,
not
you
touch.
It's an open hand like this.
This is tap.
No, you touch people like this. Go.
Yeah, but it's
everyone
like,
go
dude,
watch it.
I go, dude, like that. It's a push.
Okay. Well, you just said that you didn't do that, and now you're saying that you do it.
Yeah. Yes. Correct. But it's a tap. That's a tap.
Anybody can go watch the video.
If this is your shoulder, it's like, dude. It's not, dude.
Well, that's the way it is on the couch when I'm over. That's why I'm uncomfortable.
No, we're not doing that. Anyway, fight was canceled. Brian Ortega had all sorts of issues. The weight class was changed a few times. Ultimately, fight was canceled. Dan Ige steps up on short notice, and he fights Diego Lopez. We got Brian Ortega at 16-3. He is 2-3 in his last 5, but he is coming off that very exciting come-from-behind win over Yair Rodriguez. He's taking on Diego Lopez.
We were both crazy high on Ortega in that fight.
I certainly remember I was high on Ortega in that fight. I remember being in my living room when he won. I remember being very excited about it. I don't remember what the other side of that was like.
You don't remember a phone call after the first round?
I do remember the phone call. You called me.
That was the biggest karma. That was the biggest instant karma I've ever seen in my life. Me calling you while I'm streaming after the first round. Ha ha ha! How's your boy Ortega? Dude's getting fucking smoked. Ha 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 ha. I actually called you as the round was ending, and that was when, like, the last 10 seconds, it was like, Yair, are you okay? So as we were on the phone, I was like, ha ha ha, gotta go.
And then the tides turned because Brian Ortega is a G. The dude is tough as hell. He has no quit in him whatsoever. He will take his beating and remain dangerous. We saw it in that fight. He got the shit kicked out of him, and he still came back and won that fight. We saw it in the Volkanovski fight. He didn't win it, but it was late. Was it the third or the fourth? After getting pretty dominated, where he almost pulled off that guillotine.
And then a triangle right after.
Yeah. So Brian Ortega has no quit in him.
I think people forget that triangle was probably closer than the...
I forget about the triangle too. Yeah,
the triangle was like just as... And that's what he's known. I mean, T-City stands for Triangle City. That's like his go-to.
So he's a durable guy and he's tough for days. So I understand the people on Ortega. And those same people are talking about, well, Diego Lopez looked like shit in his last fight. He looked terrible in his last fight. You can't go by how Diego looked in his last fight. You can go by how Brian looked in his last fight. And he looked like shit too. He got the absolute piss beaten out of him. But he is so tough. He's so durable. He's not a quitter that he made it happen. Diego Lopez only looked like shit because he got tired and gave up that third round. And he got tired because he got a phone call in the middle of the night that Brian Ortega is not going to make weight. He got a phone call that he's got a new opponent. There was all sorts of issues that will suck the energy right out of you. He didn't sleep. There was a lot of wild stuff going on, and that was all in a co-main event on what was supposed to be a pretty big pay-per-view and ended up being a pretty big pay-per-view. So yeah, he gave up the third round against an opponent, a very good, durable, ranked opponent who stepped up on a few hours' notice. Thank you, Dan. That whole rant was basically to say you can't look at Diego Lopez's last fight and take something away from him. I picked Diego Lopez to beat Brian Ortega the first time. I bet on him the first time at minus 150. I bet on him again. He is not minus 150 anymore. I had to pay a little bit more, but I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't even think this is a close fight. I think Diego Lopez is faster, stronger. The jiu-jitsu's the same. I think Diego Lopez runs through Brian Ortega. As horrible as that sounds, Brian Ortega is very, very tough, but he can get pieced up, and I think Diego Lopez pieces him up. And I'm not even a Diego Lopez guy. That's Jacob. Jacob's a Diego Lopez guy. So I'm on the Lopez side here. I'm pretty confident in that, and I spent my money on it for the second time in a row. What do you think, Jakey boy?
Yeah, I actually, when this fight was originally announced and we broke this fight down, I said the same thing I'm going to say now. I don't think anybody hates either one of these guys. I mean,
No.
everyone loves Diego Lopez coming up, but I think everyone is a fan of Brian Ortega. He's a hard guy to hate, and I'm a big Diego Lopez guy myself, and even myself, it's hard to hate Brian Ortega in this matchup. But being a Diego Lopez fan and going into that first matchup, I can't remember how much I ended up put on Diego, but I think $1,000 or something, maybe $1,500. I can't remember when I was in Vegas how much I put on him. Little bit of a different situation because that was a Brian Ortega who was coming in a little bit short notice. He seemed a little bit annoyed that he was going back to 145 because he had already kind of committed mentally to being a 155 fighter to get more exciting matchups for himself, and it was kind of he almost seemed a little bit reluctant to take this match, but okay, we'll just do one last fight at 145. We'll see how we do type of thing. A little bit short notice. And in that style of lead up to that fight where Diego was really coming off some crazy momentum, all that stuff, I was like, all right, Diego's going to be able to handle this. Brian just didn't seem like he was all in mentally. And I know that might sound stupid, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but then he came in. All of a sudden, he's missing weight and stuff. So it seemed like I was pretty right on line as far as like he wasn't really prepared for that fight. And Diego probably was going to roll over him in that fight. This is a little bit different. This is Brian now has a full camp. And he said that he's still going to go back to 155. But now he seems definitely more locked into this matchup. This isn't just a willy-nilly short notice 303. This is fucking Noche UFC. He is very proud of his Mexican heritage as well. I think you're going to see the best Brian Ortega that we've seen in a long time. And if you're looking at a guy like Diego, I fucking love Diego. Diego is a crazy, dangerous guy. If he comes in and smokes Brian Ortega, it's going to be like, yeah, Diego is the fucking real deal. I'm not going to be surprised. But as far as putting my money on Diego at this point, I'm not doing it. I think by the time the fight comes, while I'm watching it, I probably will put a little bit. But as far as premium, as far as where I want to put my money on, I think Diego, he's going to be my pick. But Brian Ortega is a very fucking durable guy. He's been around. He throws some really nice counters. And Diego, when he does that blitz-in shit, he leaves himself really fucking exposed to strikes. And if Brian Ortega just says, fuck it, I know I can trust my jiu-jitsu, and he starts wrestling early, he can wear down a guy like Diego, who we've seen is comfortable living off his back for 3 rounds as well. So I'm picking Diego because he should win. He's the more dangerous guy. But as this fight approaches, it feels like a 50-50 fight. This is another one where it feels like it's got split decision written all over it. Both these guys are very tough, durable, wild scrambles, wild fight. I hope we get all the action that we should get from this fight. I'm going Diego as a pick, but I think I respect Ortega too much. And I feel like I love where he's at mentally as a fighter. Listening to him now, he seems happy with where he's at in life and stuff. And maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I'm going Diego, but I'm not putting money on him.
Yeah, listen, I get everything you're saying. I think it is much more straightforward. I totally get Brian's durability. I picked
Diego's such a sloppy striker, dude. He is fucking sloppy.
I don't think the strike. I agree with you, but Brian Ortega gets lit up on the feet too. So I don't think
but he's fighting people that are. I mean, he's fought some fucking the highest level strikers. And
I did just pull up his record here. So Yair Rodriguez just beat the piss out of him and then lost.
Yair would outstrike Diego.
That wasn't to be disparaging. I agree. The Yair fight before that doesn't matter. Doesn't count. The Alexander Volkanovski fight, okay, long-running champ. Korean Zombie, all right, decent. Max Holloway, next level. The rest of these wins aren't amazing. Frankie Edgar when he was old, Cub Swanson when he was old, Renato Moicano, who didn't get good till 2 weeks ago, Clay Guida, these are good wins, especially at the time. But when Brian Ortega cracked the top 5 is when things started to not go well, including his last fight where he got the shit kicked out of him. We're going to learn a lot about Diego Lopez here. I agree with everything you're saying. Brian is insanely tough. And I was a Diego hater because I watched Movsar Evloev just hold him down. Just hold him down. And I was like, anybody can just hold him there. He doesn't do enough off his back. So that, like you said,
fucking smokes. I can't not believe that Evloev's not a fucking minus 300 or more against Aljo. The fuck is Aljo going to do?
He's the better wrestler. It is kind of crazy.
What the fuck is Aljo going to do to him?
Yeah, no, he's literally the better wrestler.
Aljo doesn't have he doesn't have the jiu-jitsu of Diego, and he handled Diego's jiu-jitsu fine. Even that fucking, I don't know, it's off topic.
Unless he's being told not to wrestle. But yeah, we'll break that down when that comes.
Well, that's even better. He doesn't even need to wrestle. He's a way better striker. Evloev's
that's true. And he'll defend
really good
striker.
Yeah, he'll fucking light up Aljo. His kicks are crazy.
Yeah, that is true. That's many months from now. Or 2 months. When is that?
It's next month, I think.
It's 307 or 308? Oh, well, then it's in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's not next week, not the week after, but the week after that.
And if you become
a premium member, it's only $10 a month. You will get UFC 307 in the mix. We're both on the Diego Lopez side. I'm just far more confident than Jacob, which is a bit of a role reversal here because he's the Diego guy.
I kind of said the same thing versus Sadiq, too. I just do not like the defensive striking
smoked that guy.
Of Diego. But going into that fight, I'm not going to try to rewrite history. Going into that fight, I said, Sadiq's got real power, and the way that Diego blitzes in and strikes, he leaves some fucking openings. And Sadiq wasn't able to find him, and I just think eventually somebody will. And Brian Ortega can strike with Diego.
Oh, I don't disagree. I just think, dude, and his Instagram pictures, like, the dude's fucking in insane shape. Insane shape. So we'll see. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. Unlock the picks, the bets, the round line leans. Everything you could want or need heading into a fight week. And that $10 will get you 4 fight weeks, including UFC 307. We have a $7 Canadian super chat. Jakey Boy, a.k.a. Salamander, a.k.a. Firecrotch. Mount through.
It's not a Firecrotch.
Prove it.
I'll send you a picture.
No, thank you. With Lock of the Week, Brazilian baddies get the oil ready. Thank you for the super chat.